Welcome to Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine. I'm your host, Jill Jardine, Master's in Counseling Psychology, longtime professional astrologer, psychic healer, and yogi. In this episode, my guest is Patty the Astrologer, a renowned and celebrated professional master consulting astrologer, astrology teacher, lecturer, author, and blogger. Stay tuned and hear what Patty has to say. My guest in this episode is Patty the Astrologer, renowned and celebrated professional master consulting astrologer, astrology teacher and lecturer, author and blogger, who has been providing astrology support and services since 1981. She is a successful business owner who has started and managed two businesses, one of which she sold after 17 years of success. In her current business of 37 years, she provides astrology readings and contact with your guides and loved ones whom have passed over. She also teaches basic and advanced astrology classes, a monthly metaphysical discussion group, and hosts a weekly Edgar Cayce Association for Research and Enlightenment, A.R.E, study group. Patty has studied and applied the concepts of many legendary philosophies, including Alice Bailey, Rudolph Steiner, Lao Russell, Course in Miracles, and Edgar Cayce. She has touched the lives of thousands across the United States and internationally through personal readings, professional lectures, and seminars on astrology, meditation, and dream interpretation at community and academic events. Patty taught classes in astrology at several colleges in Delaware, has given astrology presentations at Edgar Cayce's A.R.E member gatherings, and taught astrology classes at the A.R.E headquarters in Virginia Beach. She has hosted numerous national and local TV and radio shows and was the resident astrologer for WDEL Radio Saturday Hotspot with Frank Gregory. Patty currently teaches advanced and basic level astrology classes and hosts an esoteric spiritual discussion group. She is the Del Mar area representative for Edgar Cayce's A.R.E. Patty is available for astrology reading to facilitate contact to your ascended masters, session with your loved ones on the other side, lectures, workshops, and media engagements. Patty is also a member of the American Federation of Astrologers, Organization of Professional Astrologers, a member of Edgar Cayce Association for Research and Enlightenment, the Delaware representative for Edgar Cayce's A.R.E. She's an author of Meeting of the Minds Through the Signs. And she has been an astrology teacher at Deltec Colleges, Wilmington University, the University of Delaware Osher Center for Lifelong Living, and also at the Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach, as well as being an astrologer on various radio shows and TV shows. You can reach Patty at her email, patty@pattytheastrologer.com, or call her at 302-660-2551. You can learn more about Patty's services at www.pattytheastrologer.com and can read her blog and access her newsletters at Patty the Astrologer's blog. Welcome, Patty. It is my honor and pleasure to have you on Cosmic Scene.
And it is my honor and pleasure to be invited and interact with you and your people.
Yes, I can't wait for them to hear your story and what you offer. And I'm curious, how did you begin with the Edgar Cayce and astrology connection?
Well, it's interesting. I had started reading about Cayce and joined the A.R.E way back in 1976, simultaneously reading Linda Goodman's Sun Signs.
Yes,
so
classic.
And then eventually I got my chart done by a local astrologer. And then I started asking him a lot of questions. What about this? What about that? He said, look, you need to go with these women. I forget their names now, but he says, just call these women. They have a little store, which it was like that back then, and they are giving lessons, and you can interact with them. So I did that. I went to their little store, which was in the basement of one of their houses, And come to find out, they not only gave astrology lessons, they invited speakers and they had an Edgar Cayce study group.
Oh, wow.
So they invited me to join the study group at the same time I was taking astrology lessons. And it was so interesting because we were all astrologers in the Edgar Cayce study group. So we were talking astrology. And you know very well that you can say a whole page of information in one paragraph or sentence of astrology. So
Right.
that's what we did. Yeah.
That must have been a blast. And you said that later when you became connected with the headquarters, that was the language of everybody at Edgar Cayce headquarters, astrology.
Right. Almost everybody, well, I was really active for many years, still am. And almost everybody is either an astrologer or has had their chart done, and they're very conversant in astrology and understand the correlation between the readings and the spiritual cycles and the astrology cycles.
Yeah. And speaking of your time there, how did you come to volunteer and work with the Edgar Cayce headquarters in Virginia Beach?
Oh, interesting. I decided that I would go to a conference. I'd wanted to do it for years, and finally it opened up that I could do that. So in 1980, I hopped in the car and went down to Virginia Beach to a music conference, as a matter of fact. And while I was there, people were pouring juice and giving cookies out. And I just said, "Oh, would you like some help?" And that's how I started volunteering, and I ended up in 14 years doing all different kinds of volunteer things, culminating. Well, I'm still an area representative, but I did a lot of things in all those years.
Wow. And, for some of my listeners, like, again, we talked about this, that some of the people who were born after a certain time don't even know who Edgar Cayce was and about his readings or the astrology piece of his work. Do you want to just share a little bit about that for my listeners?
Okay, I can do that. Edgar Cayce died in 1945, and that was I joined in 1976. So I'm trying to think about the younger people. When I was at the A.R.E, I was in my 40s, and most of the people then were in their 40s and their 50s.
Okay.
And until recently, everybody was old.
Okay.
Until like in my experience, the last 2 or 3 years. And then all of a sudden, they have hired a lot of young people at headquarters. More and more young people are calling me to be interested in the Edgar Cayce study groups and what Edgar Cayce has to offer. So it's going around that younger people are now interested.
That's
And
great.
maybe it's because, yeah, as you know, Jill, some of these younger people are the new race that are coming in, and they're so brilliant. I just like the young people so much, and they're interested in these things, and they get excited about it when they hear about it.
Right. They love astrology. They want it as part of their day to day life. And it's interesting. I'm glad to hear there is a revival of Cayce's teachings because about in the last 20 years, if you mentioned Edgar Cayce, like half the people wouldn't know who it was. So I'm glad that there is going to be a renewed interest in his works and in the astrology and the past life regression, as we talk with Joanne DiMaggio, and
Oh,
the
yeah,
other contributions he made to the psychic work.
right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's true. It's deep stuff. It was pre-internet, and it really got to the heart of things. Which when did you actually become a professional astrologer?
Oh, gosh, way back in 1980. I'm laughing because it was an accident. I had sold my business, and I was said, "Oh, I'll take the lessons." Going back to these ladies, I'll just take lessons for the summer. So, as you know, with astrology, you're always learning.
Right.
40 years later, I'm still learning. And so, when I was giving the classes, I was fascinated with your soul's purpose. So they inducted me into the intermediate class. Then I went to the advanced class. And as soon as I got excited about your soul's purpose and how you can learn that and live it, they started asking me to give lectures right there in that little class. And then people heard about me and they would call me up and say, "Would you do my chart?"
Okay.
And I said, "Okay, I'll do your chart." And then it soon became obvious that I'm not going to do this free forever. because I believe that there should be an exchange of energy for whatever we do.
Exactly.
And so I started just charging a little tiny bit, or asking for an apple, or asking something for an exchange. And the other part of that is it was obvious I had done astrology in previous lives. It was so natural to me. It still is, but it was so natural. And I had a past life regression at one point, not with Joanne. I didn't know her then, but with someone else. And come to find out, I had been an astrologer in Atlantis.
Wow. So you did get
Yeah,
that
and came.
validation of the past life. I think probably in more than one life too
Oh yeah,
for you.
yeah, right. And Egypt. I'm fascinated with Egypt. So
Interesting, because you came to it and you were so fluid with it, and you were, still rather young. I did get into astrology very young too, when I was just a teenager, and I've done past life regressions, and I was a Vedic astrologer in India. In fact, a Vedic guru, which is funny because I've been Western astrology up until about 10 years ago, and then I brought in the Vedic. But yeah, I think we've had to have past lives to,
yeah,
pick it up kind of where we left off. And because it's an art and science, and it's evolved over the years, but it basically is still a guidepost for people on their soul's purpose and what they're here to do in their lifetime.
right, right.
Yes, fascinating stuff. I want to keep this going. I am curious about your book, Meeting of the Minds Through the Signs. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about that? Because there's a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
astrology books out there, but this is a little different.
this is different. My sister. This is going back 20 years ago. My sister was managing a law firm, and she was the liaison between the lawyers and the staff. And I know all these people, Delaware, we know everybody. And she kept complaining that she would ask the one lawyer who was that designated lawyer for the year for all this information, and he wouldn't give her anything. I said, "Oh, I know. He's a Gemini. You can't. Are you asking him that you want something?" She's a Scorpio, and she said, "Yes."
Different
I said,
modes.
"I said he's a Gemini. He doesn't know what he wants. Ask him. Ask him. You think you want this information?" And bingo, she did that. What's his name? I think I need this. Blah, blah. And as soon as she said think, he started sending her so much that she was inundated. And I realized how valuable using the keywords are. So I wrote a little pamphlet about it for each sign. Each sign, what they like, what they're afraid of, what makes them happy, and what their magic word is. And then I added a paragraph of what Edgar Cayce had to say about that sign. And it's very helpful.
That's excellent. That's great for people of all walks. Even it sounds like in business too. It would really, really help. Meeting of the
Yes.
minds through the signs. Where can they get that on your website? Patty the
No, we get it
astrologer.
right from Amazon.
Oh,
No,
from
right from
Amazon.
Amazon.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yep.
Meeting of the minds through the
Mind.
signs through Amazon.
Yes.
That sounds like a pivotal astrological work for people who are
Yeah.
at all levels, right? Whether they know astrology or
Oh,
not.
right. Right. And especially for business. And I recommend that to my clients when they're having relationship situations. And I'll ask about the communication. And as soon as we find out what the signs are, here's the verb you use. And it's so helpful. I mean, it's really practical. There's nothing else on the market like it.
No, not that I've ever heard or seen. So that's a great contribution. My guest is Patty the Astrologer. Check her out at pattytheastrologer.com. When we come back, she's going to talk about her readings and why clients appreciate them. And we might do a little bit of future forecasting into the rest of 2023 with two astrologers. So stay tuned. We're back with Patty the Astrologer. Patty, I'm curious, what do your clients appreciate about your readings, and why might your readings be a little different from other astrologers?
Okay, the one thing they appreciate the most is learning their soul's purpose or why they are here for this lifetime. And I zero in on their past life point to alert them to what talents and characteristics they have brought into this lifetime that are innate in their being, and then point them to what qualities or characteristics their soul is asking them to develop this lifetime. And then, depending on the client, I will bring in Pluto if they're ready for transformation and where the big emotional breakthroughs come, and Jupiter where the where grace is, where they say, "Oh gosh, all your good luck." Well, we know that's grace from previous lifetimes well spent. And then we get into real practical things. And I think another thing that is so helpful for them is to understand through their horoscope why relationships are the way they are.
That
And
is
you know,
very
as an
important. Right.
yeah, because to us it glares. I mean, we look at a person's horoscope or chart and we say, "Oh my goodness, look at that." We don't say it out loud. And then what they need to learn this lifetime is really staring at us, and we can gently guide them and help them understand their lives.
Yes, because probably the same as all astrologers, people come and they want to know about love. Usually, for me, it's usually the number one question they ask about relationships and love. And then health and money kind of are a close second. But yeah, love
Right.
seems to dominate. And I think at certain times when there are certain astrological transits going on that, the relationship stuff is even more powerful. And then, economic stuff right now with the Taurus Scorpio
Mm,
eclipse coming up, of course, that's going to be on everybody's mind as well. So, and
right.
interesting that you work so deeply with Pluto because a lot of, I love Pluto. It's conjunct my North Node. So, but a lot of people don't understand Plutonian energy and it's scary to them. But if you have any kind of background in psychology or counseling, you can see the gifts of Pluto.
Right. And it depends on the client. It depends on their chart. If they have a really quiet Pluto where it's almost hidden or in the 12th house or something, I don't emphasize that quite as much. But I attract through the A.R.E and the Edgar Cayce people, the Edgar Cayce activities, I attract people who want to better themselves. And so many times they'll say to me, "Why am I here? Tell me my soul's purpose. What can I do to better myself?" And then they might ask about repetitive relationships. And we know that, as Edgar Cayce always said, the relationships are yourself coming to you, so you can look at yourself. And so I attract those people, and of course, love, money, and career. But even older people, I'm older myself, but even older people want to know those things.
Right. I mean, I think they're concerns of a human lifetime, no matter how old you are. I mean, I
Exactly.
had a woman who was in her late 70s asking me when she was going to meet and marry her fourth husband. And you can see that stuff and you want to keep that hope and that light shining for people. So we do the best we can with what we see in the chart.
Right. And they need to understand. I don't gently tell them, this is what your chart shows for the year ahead. Here are the episodes that are likely, and how you experience them is dependent upon what choices you make.
Exactly. I always call them windows of opportunity, and whether they step
Hmm.
through it or doors can be open, but they have to take the action and it just doesn't happen. Like, same thing with a Jupiter transit. It's not like, oh, magically you're going to get a big boon or a big boost. They do have to be proactive in moving. Like I say, the planets will come towards you, but you have to move towards them too,
Yes.
if you want their blessings. So, yeah, so it's lovely having another astrologer to talk about all this with. My listeners may be curious, what are you up to now? You're doing readings, right?
Oh, I do. Oh, yes. I still do readings. Gosh, I have clients that have been with me for over 30 years. And so they must like what I do for their year ahead. But I also give a lot of Zoominars. I call them Zoominars now. And I teach. I've got two classes going. One class is going into the intermediate level. And the other class, if we can call it a class, Jill, it's a level of, there's 4 or 5 of us that are, I'm professional. The others are professional level, and one of my students is getting ready to branch out and start doing basic beginner classes and do readings. And I've critiqued her work, and she's very ready. And that's real. We learn a lot through our interactions. It's like you and I sitting down and just discussing all the planets. It's really fun. And then with the Cayce work, I present Zoominars and in-person speakers to people. And of course, to me, the Cayce and the astrology are so synonymous, it just flows. And we have good reception for all of those. I used to be on the radio, and oh gosh, I've done that so many times. But the radio show that I was on shut all those Saturday programs off, so I'm not on the radio anymore.
Yes, we mentioned
I'm on your podcast.
Yes, here we go. And we have that in common, being astrology radio personalities who were pioneers in certain ways. So I love that we have that too. We have some time here, Patty, to get some of your expertise. We'll share our astrologer viewpoints on these current outer planetary transits, specifically Saturn going through Pisces now until 2025, and Pluto stepping the toe in Aquarius, going to go back to Capricorn, but then be in Aquarius for about 20 years. We've been having it for the month of March of 2023, and Pluto will stay there till June 11th. But what's your take going forward on these? What can you share about some insights you may have?
And you're in Aquarius, so it's going to be interesting to see how Pluto treats you. And everybody will be aspected by Pluto. But what I've seen, Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto is the planet that transforms whatever is symbolized by the sign it is in. And we saw with Pluto going through Capricorn that there's been upheaval and outright death of certain corporations, every entities that we thought were stable, secure, that were going to last forever. They've gone by the boards. And now we're getting a very fast glimpse with Pluto in Aquarius, the sign of technology and electricity. And look what's happening in the tech sector.
Right. There's an end of the old order. And a lot of my cryptocurrency listeners are chomping at the bit for cryptocurrency to have its rebirth and come back as it had been earlier. So yes, a lot of new technologies, the old out with the old, in with the new. And I see a lot of consciousness shifts and accelerations with people, and things are moving fast. This few month window, things are really accelerated. So people are getting a glimpse of what their life might look like. And I think this is across the board, every sign from what I'm seeing.
Oh, yes, absolutely, because Aquarius affects what's going to affect me in a quincunx, which means I've got 20 years of adjusting to things. But every sign, everyone will be affected somehow, and you will be accelerated. Won't that be fun?
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling it. I want to do an Aquarian thing of freedom, just get rid of my place and be a bit of a nomad traveling around. And I definitely feel like big changes and flexibility, I feel, is the key for this time with Pluto in Aquarius.
Yes, but it's interesting. But Aquarius is a fixed sign. So underneath your freedom and your nomadness, there is a need. Maybe with you, it's not unconscious, but I have Aquarian friends that don't realize that they're free and they're independent, but underneath that, somewhere in their lives, there is something that is very stable to hold their feet on the ground.
Right. You have to have that. You have to have the grounding, and you have to have gotten to a place, I think, where that internal compass is pretty stable so that you can externally move about the world. But I do, people forget too, Pluto is death, transformation, and rebirth, and not necessarily in that order as we've seen.
Right. Now, I just spent the last, Pluto was in Capricorn, and of course, being a Cancer, it aspected 5 of my Cancer planets.
Wow.
And I look back at that, and I said, well, I'm still alive. And then but my students look at me, and I said, well, we have death. But there has been death of things, and all your people listening should to study Pluto and find out how the sign of Aquarius affects them, and then they have an insight of how this transformation, which is so very fast, which is another Aquarian thing, and they'll be prepared.
Right. Like I try to explain it to people, if people had known what was coming in 2019 and the next 3 years, that would have blown their mind. But think of that, right? How much our world changed. But we're going to have that kind of change happen every year for 20 years, I think.
Yeah.
But not necessarily pandemics and that kind of things. But
Oh, right.
looking back, like let's say as we look back in 2025 and we will see what happened in the last couple of years, it will be quite interesting. And people don't realize this stuff is not going to all happen at once. It's gradual, but our world will be changing constantly, I feel.
Right.
Well,
and talking about the pandemic, our advanced class was really looking at that, and I did a lot of research. I went all the way back to 50 BC of all the pandemics, and the pandemics that were real pandemics, and not AIDS. I did do AIDS, but that was not the pandemic we're talking about. Jill, every single pandemic had Pluto conjunct Jupiter.
That's wild. That's a great piece of astrological information, which makes sense, right? Because it was Plutonian transformation, death, rebirth, and then enhanced by Jupiter.
Yes. It was fascinating research. Yeah.
So then that leads us to the other planet, Saturn, our friend Shani in Sanskrit, going through Pisces. And I asked people to look back, if they were alive, to what was going on when it was there before in late 93 through 96, which you and I were discussing was quite the spiritual time period for us.
Right. Well, with me being a Cancer, Saturn in Pisces was putting me in the right place at the right time for different things to happen. And I was very active with A.R.E. and headquarters down in Virginia Beach. And that's when I was giving lots of seminars there. I taught 2 tracks of astrology lessons there. I was first secretary, then vice president, and then president of their yearly congresses, they call them, which are meetings of all the members. I've moved around a lot during that time. So the Pisces thing was restless, but I always landed on my feet. It was a good time for spiritual growth for me at that time.
Yeah, same here. A lot of advances. And I think for our society in general, I mean, if I tracked back to that time, I did some research and remember people like Deepak coming out, Wayne Dyer. There was a lot of expos, spiritual expos were coming up. Their bookstores, metaphysical bookstores were popping up everywhere. Yoga was starting to come into the mainstream, although it took a few years later before all the yoga centers started popping up. But a lot of metaphysical, spiritual phenomena were showing up in our world. People were doing the angel cards and tarot cards, and they were still kind of foo-foo back then, but I think that we're going to see a lot of spiritual metaphysical teachings come mainstream during the Saturn and Pisces.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Right.
All right. So we have some things to look forward to with these outer planet transits. My guest has been Patty the Astrologer. Thank you so much for bringing your wisdom on Cosmic Scene today, Patty.
Well, thank you. Boy, I'm thrilled.
You can contact Patty at her email, patty@pattytheastrologer.com, or call her at 302-660-2551. You can learn more about Patty's services at www.pattytheastrologer.com, and you can read her blog and access her newsletters at Patty the Astrologer's blog. I hope you enjoyed this episode with my guest, Patty the Astrologer. Remember to subscribe, download, share, and give us a 5-star review. This is Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine signing out, sending healing, astrological, cosmic currents through the quantum field.